Ladies and gentlemen, most people go through life looking for meaning, the way one might hunt for buried treasure, with a map, clues, and the assumption that it is somewhere out there, hidden. We've been conditioned to believe that life is a journey toward something, toward a goal, toward success, toward enlightenment, toward purpose. But what if this very pursuit is the illusion? What if the meaning of life is not at the end of some path, but woven into the very act of walking? You see, when we ask, does life have a purpose, we're already assuming that life is a tool, a vehicle, a means to an end. But what if life is not a task to complete, but a song to hear? No one listens to music just to get to the final note. No one dances just to arrive at a destination. The meaning is in the melody, in the rhythm, in the motion itself. Yet we try to force life to behave like a machine. We want it to do something, to produce, to justify itself. But life is not a machine. It is like the waves of the ocean, endlessly arising and falling, never trying to get anywhere, just being. You don't ask a wave, what's your purpose? It just is. And in that being, it is complete. The question of purpose comes from a mind afraid of emptiness, of chaos, of not knowing. But the tree doesn't need a reason to grow, nor the bird a reason to sing. They do what they do because it is their nature. Likewise, perhaps our trouble is not that life lacks purpose, but that we keep demanding it be something other than what it is. There is great liberation in realizing that life does not need to justify itself to us. The stars do not ask why they shine. The moon does not wonder if it is enough. They simply exist, and that is their miracle. So maybe we've had it backward all along. Maybe the true question is not what is the purpose of life, but can you be here, now, without needing a purpose to feel complete? Can you breathe, feel, experience, not as a step toward something else, but as the fulfillment itself? Children know this secret. They play not to accomplish, not to win, but because play is joy. Watch a child spinning in the grass, laughing for no reason at all. That's life. In its essence, unfiltered, unburdened by the need for a reason. And so perhaps the answer is this. Life does not have a purpose in the way we expect it to. It is the purpose. To live, to breathe, to love, to laugh, to hurt, to wonder. These are not steps on the way to something higher. They are the point. In asking the question, we miss the answer. It's like trying to bite your own teeth or see your own eyes. The answer to life's purpose is not an idea to be captured. It is an experience to be surrendered to. It is here now, in this moment, not in the next. So dance the dance, sing the song, live the life, not to find a purpose, but to be the expression of life itself. Most of us have been taught to think of life as a journey with a destination. We're told to keep moving forward, to aim higher, to achieve more, always with the promise that one day we'll arrive at some place called fulfillment. It's as if life is some sort of ladder we must climb, rung by rung, hoping that at the top we'll find the meaning we've been seeking. But when you pause and look more closely, that entire way of thinking begins to unravel, because the very notion that life is taking us somewhere assumes that it isn't already complete right now. And that's the illusion. Life is not a train with a final stop. It's not a business deal with a payoff at the end. It's far closer to a melody, something to be played, enjoyed, and experienced moment by moment. You don't listen to a symphony just to hear the last note. That would be absurd. No one fast-forwards through a song just to get to its conclusion. The music is the beauty. Every note, every rest, every rhythm is essential, and life in the same way is not meant to be rushed through with eyes only on the goal. It's meant to be lived right now with full attention. Still, the mind rebels. It wants there to be an endgame, a purpose, something to validate the struggle, the effort, the pain. So we invent reasons. Careers, success, enlightenment, legacy. We make life into a tool, something useful for getting somewhere else. But life isn't a tool. It's the space in which all things appear. It doesn't need to justify itself, because it is the justification. When a wave rises from the ocean, no one asks what its purpose is. It simply forms, curls, crashes, and returns. It doesn't need a reason to exist, it just does. And the same is true for us. But we don't see that because we're caught in this endless mental pattern of future-seeking. We believe that today is only valuable if it helps us reach something tomorrow, that this moment only matters if it contributes to a bigger picture. But the truth is, there is no bigger picture. This moment is the picture. What you're doing right now, the thoughts flowing through you, the air touching your skin, this is life, not some ideal state waiting at the end of your accomplishments. And this isn't to say that goals are meaningless or that action is unnecessary. It's just that when you make purpose the center of your life, you overlook the fact that life itself doesn't ask for a purpose. The stars do not shine for reason. They shine because that's what stars do. Flowers don't bloom to achieve something. They bloom because it's in their nature. And when you see that, when you really feel that truth in your bones, everything softens. You no longer live each day trying to get somewhere. You begin to dance with life rather than race through it. It's a shift in how you relate to the world. You stop being the anxious seeker always chasing meaning and become the quiet witness, aware, alive, engaged. You begin to notice the miracle of breath, the subtle beauty of silence, the way the sunlight dances on the floor. You realize that life doesn't need a narrative arc. It doesn't need to be understood in order to be lived fully. The purpose, if there is one, is not something to be found out there. It's in the living, the being, the experiencing, right here, right now. The concept of purpose is deeply rooted in our conditioning. From childhood, we're taught that everything must serve a function. School prepares us for a job. A job secures us money. Money buys us comfort. And comfort, we're told, will finally bring happiness. This cause and effect thinking frames our entire reality. So it's only natural that we ask, what's the purpose of life? But this question assumes something problematic, that life is only valuable if it serves something beyond itself. It implies that being alive, in and of itself, is somehow insufficient unless it leads to a greater end. This assumption is the root of much anxiety, dissatisfaction, and spiritual disconnection. In truth, when you step back and observe the natural world, nothing seems to operate according to this rigid notion of purpose. Birds sing and not for applause. Trees grow not to win awards. Rivers flow not to reach success. They do what they do simply because that's what they are. The bird is not trying to become a better bird. It's not chasing some idea of bird perfection. It sings because that's the expression of its nature in that moment. Similarly, life, when left undisturbed by mental projections, is spontaneous, unforced, and complete as it is. Yet we spend our time believing that meaning lies in the future. We say things like, when I get there, I'll understand, or when I achieve this, I'll be whole. But that future never arrives, because the mind that seeks is always seeking. It lives in a loop, a self-created trap of postponement. It's always a few steps ahead of where you are now, whispering that this moment isn't enough. And so, we keep running, thinking we are going somewhere important, when in reality we're avoiding the present altogether. But what happens when you stop? What happens when you cease the mental chase for meaning and sit silently, doing nothing, simply being? At first, the mind protests. It panics. It says, you're wasting time, you should be doing something. But slowly, if you can stay present, a quiet knowing arises, a kind of peace, a realization that this, the breath, the stillness, the awareness of being, is already whole. Nothing is missing. And that quiet knowing is not something added to you. It is what you are underneath all the striving. The trouble is not that life is meaningless. The trouble is that we try to force meaning onto it instead of allowing its natural rhythm to reveal itself. Meaning is not found like a buried coin. It arises in participation. When you are fully present with life, tasting food, holding a loved one's hand, listening to the wind in the trees, meaning blossoms effortlessly, not because you found it, but because you stopped searching long enough for it to reveal itself. This is not a passive way of being. It's not about giving up or withdrawing from the world. It's about showing up more fully with less noise in the mind. It's about living from presence instead of pressure. When you realize that life does not owe you a purpose, you become free. Free to live, to feel, to explore without the burden of justification. You become like the sky, open, spacious, untouched by the need to prove anything. And in that openness, life flows through you, vibrant and sacred, as it always has. You're no longer the one chasing. The wave, you are the wave itself. When we ask whether life has a purpose, we often assume that such a purpose must be something fixed, definite, and explainable, something we can grasp with thought, name with words, or reach with effort. But this craving for a defined purpose is born from the intellect, from the part of us that wants control, certainty, and structure. It cannot tolerate the mystery of simply being. And so, instead of living life directly, we try to turn it into a concept, something manageable, boxed up neatly with answers. But life resists being boxed. It is wild, dynamic, untamed. The moment you think you've captured it, it slips away. That's the nature of life. It moves. Look at your breath. It comes and goes. You do not hold on to it, for to hold your breath is to die. You must let it rise and fall. That rhythm is life itself. Rising, falling, flowing. Yet we cling to this idea that if only we could grasp the meaning of it all, we would feel secure. We want a final answer, but there is none. There is only the ever-changing dance of existence and your participation in it. The need to find a singular purpose is the mind's way of trying to pin down the ocean. It doesn't work. And it doesn't need to. The ocean is beautiful precisely because it moves, because it's alive. The irony is that while we chase meaning like it's something distant, hidden in a future achievement or in some profound revelation, life is quietly offering itself to us in every ordinary moment. In the feel of sunlight on your skin, in the laughter of a friend, in the ache of your own heart. These are not distractions from some grander purpose. They are the purpose. But we're too busy thinking, analyzing, striving to notice. We want life to speak in dramatic divine sentences, but instead it whispers in silence. And unless we learn to listen, not with the mind but with awareness, we miss the sacred that's right in front of us. People often ask, what am I supposed to do with my life? But what if that question doesn't need an answer? What if being alive is already enough? What if the real task is not to do something with life, but to allow life to do something through you? When you relax your grip, when you let go of needing to figure it all out, life begins to move more freely. You find yourself doing things not out of pressure, but from a quiet pull, a natural response rather than a forced plan. This is when authenticity arises. This is when life starts to feel meaningful, not because it fits a definition, but because you're finally in it. The question of purpose disappears the moment you are fully present. In that stillness, there's no longer a need for explanation. You become like a flame, burning not to prove anything, not to fulfill a role, but simply because that's what a flame does. And in your presence, in your being, in your letting go, the whole universe moves, not toward a goal, but as an expression of itself, just as you are. And that may be the deepest truth. Life doesn't need a purpose. It is the purpose. When you truly look at nature, the birds, the rivers, the trees, the sky, you begin to notice something astonishing. Nothing is in a hurry, and nothing is trying to be anything other than what it already is. A flower doesn't open faster because it's trying to be useful. The moon doesn't orbit to impress. The rain doesn't fall for applause. And yet, all of it unfolds with such effortless grace, such perfect timing. There is a profound intelligence at work, not in the way we usually think of intelligence, not logic, not analysis, but a deeper kind of knowing, one that does not ask why, but simply is. And this points to something crucial. The idea of purpose as we've constructed it is often a distraction. It's an attempt to explain away the mystery of life rather than experience it. We cling to purpose because it gives us the illusion of direction. It makes us feel safe, as if life were a straight path with a clear beginning and end. But life is not a straight path. It loops, twists, rises, falls. It surprises you, confuses you, delights you. And the moment you try to control it with a tight grip on purpose, you begin to lose touch with its spontaneous, flowing nature. Purpose, in the way we're usually taught, creates pressure. It says, you must become something greater than you are now. It places the value of your life somewhere else. In the future, in success, in recognition, in fulfillment. It says you're not enough yet, but if you keep working, maybe one day you will be. But that idea is a trap, because even when you reach your goal, the mind will invent a new one. And again you will feel incomplete, so you keep climbing an invisible ladder, never reaching the top. Meanwhile, you're missing the beauty of the view around you. There is another way, a more ancient natural rhythm. And that rhythm says, what if you don't need to become anything? What if you are already what life needs you to be in this moment? What if the act of being is more important than achieving? You don't need to understand your life to live it. You don't need to justify your existence to participate in the miracle of now. When you allow yourself to simply be, without the demand for explanation, you begin to taste a freedom that purpose could never offer. This isn't about apathy or resignation. It's not about giving up dreams or passions. It's about a shift in orientation. Instead of moving from lack, the belief that you need to do something to become whole, you move from presence, from wholeness, from trust. You do things not because you're trying to find meaning, but because you are the meaning. You write, you speak, you create, you help, you rest. Not to fulfill a role, but as a natural unfolding of who you are. And in this way, purpose ceases to be a question you need to answer. It becomes a fragrance that arises from your way of being. You no longer chase after it like a hungry ghost. You live, and that living becomes luminous. Not because you discovered a grand reason for existence, but because you stopped demanding one. And what remains is a kind of quiet joy, the joy of being exactly where you are, without needing life to be anything else. The present moment is often the most overlooked aspect of life. We're so accustomed to thinking of what's next, what needs fixing, what's missing, what could be better, that we rarely, if ever, settle into the now. And yet this moment is the only thing that's ever real. The past is memory, the future is imagination, and both exist only in the mind. But the present, the sensation of breath, the feeling in your hands, the light filtering through the air, is immediate and alive. It doesn't require belief or thought. It just is. And in this presence, the need for purpose begins to dissolve. Because the question, what is the purpose of life, is always a question about something else, some other time, some other place. It pulls you away from the here and now. But the paradox is that any real sense of purpose or fulfillment only arises when you are fully anchored in the present. It's not found in the abstraction of the future, but in the intimacy of direct experience. In fact, purpose is not a thing you can think your way into. It's something that reveals itself when thinking becomes quiet and awareness takes its place. The mind is always trying to assign value, to judge, to measure. It asks, is this useful, is this meaningful? But presence doesn't operate in those terms. Presence doesn't analyze, it simply witnesses. It allows what is to be. When you are present, you're not concerned with whether life has meaning, because you are life in that very moment. There's no separation between you and the experience. You are not a person trying to use life for something else. You are the unfolding itself. In the now, even the smallest thing can feel significant. The taste of tea, the laughter of a friend, a leaf floating through the air. None of these things would traditionally be called purposeful, and yet, when fully experienced, they carry a kind of sacredness that no philosophy can replicate. When you're present, everything becomes enough. Not because it satisfies a concept, but because it doesn't need to. It just is. And that's the miracle. This kind of presence can't be forced, and it can't be faked. It arises naturally when you let go of the mental noise that insists life must be about something. In presence, you begin to notice that most of your stress, fear, and confusion come from living in time, from mentally jumping into the future or dragging the past into the present. But when you relax into now, the mind begins to slow. You start to hear things you never noticed. You feel more alive, more grounded, more available to life itself. And in that groundedness, you no longer need life to answer your questions. The questions themselves fall away. You're no longer a seeker, chasing some hidden truth. You've become still enough to realize that you are the truth you are seeking, the presence in which everything arises, thoughts, emotions, sounds, sensations, is not separate from you. It is you. So the answer to the question, what is the purpose of life, may not come in the form of a conclusion. It comes as a shift in attention, away from ideas and toward experience. And in that shift, you stop searching for the light outside of you and begin to see that you are the light. Not someday, not after you've accomplished something, but now, right here, in this breath, in this moment. That is where purpose lives. And the more you live from that space, the more you realize there is nothing else to find. Most people live as if life were a puzzle to be solved, as if there is some final answer, some ultimate truth hiding just around the corner, waiting to be discovered if only we try hard enough, study deeply enough, or live righteously enough. This constant quest gives the illusion of meaning, but more often it breeds tension, anxiety, and exhaustion. The truth is, life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. And the moment you stop demanding that it makes sense, something unexpected happens. It begins to feel whole. The very act of letting go of the need for purpose opens the door to a deeper kind of understanding, one that is not built on conclusions, but on direct, felt experience. This is why surrender is so powerful. Not the kind of surrender that feels like giving up, but the kind that feels like returning to what is already here. Most of our suffering comes from resistance. We resist uncertainty, we resist discomfort, we resist not knowing. But life by its nature is uncertain. It moves, it changes, it dies, and is born again in every breath. When we resist its movement, we suffer. When we align with it, when we flow with it, we begin to feel a natural sense of harmony, not because we figured life out, but because we stopped fighting it. The idea that there must be a grand cosmic purpose for our existence is a projection of our minds that are frightened by the mystery of it all. We want a reason because reasons feel safe. But life does not owe us safety. It doesn't owe us clarity. What it does offer, if we're willing to be present with it, is beauty, depth, and wonder. And you don't need to understand it to feel that. You just need to stop running from it. In this way, surrender is not passive. It's a profound act of trust. It's saying, I don't know what life is, and I don't need to. It's opening your hands, loosening your grip on control, and allowing life to move through you without constantly questioning its direction. And when you do that, you begin to live with less fear. You become softer. You're no longer at war with reality. You begin to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. And in that seeing, there's peace. Somewhere deep down, we already know this. We've all had moments where time disappeared, in nature, in love, in creativity, in silence. And in those moments, we weren't asking about purpose. We weren't searching. We were simply being, fully alive, fully aware, without needing anything extra. Those moments are the truth, not because they tell us something, but because they show us what it feels like to be one with life. So instead of constantly asking, why am I here? Maybe a better question is, can I be fully here now? Can I meet this moment with openness instead of judgment? Can I stop trying to force meaning and simply live from a place of presence, curiosity, and awe? The irony is that when you stop needing life to give you a reason, life begins to feel profoundly meaningful on its own, not because it fits into your mind structure, but because your heart is finally awake to its mystery. And perhaps that is the only purpose worth speaking of, to be alive to the wonder of existence, not someday, not when everything makes sense, but now, always now.